Okay, in this video we're going to talk about using the 14 formulas, which are the sum and difference and double angle formulas for trig functions, to do some harder examples. And before we get started doing the examples, there are some formulas that we need. So the first formulas that we need are going to be the sum and difference formulas for sine. So that's the sine of x plus or minus y is equal to the sine of x, the cosine of y, plus or minus the cosine of x, the sine of y. So the way that I have them written there, it's very compact. You can read the sum formula by going across the top. So it's sine of x plus y is sine x cosine y plus cosine x sine y. And then if you read across the bottom, you get the difference formula. Sine of x minus y is sine x cosine y minus cosine x sine y. So it's a nice compact way of writing that. We can do the same sort of thing for the cosine of x plus y. So the cosine of x plus or minus y is cosine x cosine y, and then notice it flips, so it's minus plus, and then sine x sine y. So again, to get the sum formula for cosine, you read across the top. So it's cosine of x plus y is cosine of x cosine of y, and then minus sine of x sine of y. We also need the double angle formulas. So sine of 2x, there's only one formula. Sine of 2x is 2 sine x cosine x. Then cosine of 2x, there's three different formulas we could choose from. So we have cosine of 2x is cosine squared minus sine squared, or 2 cosine squared minus 1, or 1 minus 2 sine squared. And it just kind of depends on what you're given, which formula you'd want to use. Pretty much, I don't end up using cosine squared minus sine squared all that often. But if I'm given cosine of x, I'll use 2 cosine squared minus 1. If I'm given sine, I'll use 1 minus 2 sine squared. If I'm given neither of those, I'll usually use the one that involves the smallest ratio. So if sine is smaller or cosine is smaller, I'll make my choice based on that. All right, let's take a look at what we're trying to do. So we are given sine of x is negative 7 over 25, and x is in the fourth quadrant. We're given that tangent of y is 15 over 8, and y is in the third quadrant. And then what do we want to find? We want to find, first, the sine of 2x minus y, and then we want to find the cosine of 2y minus 2x. Okay, so to do a problem like this, the first thing I always do is I take the givens and I draw a bunch of triangles. So I'm going to draw a triangle for each of the angles that I know something about. So I'm going to start with this set of information. I know the sine of x is negative 7 over 25. I know that x is in the fourth quadrant. So I'm going to start off by drawing that. So for x, we have a fourth quadrant triangle. I know sine is negative 7 over 25, so opposite will be negative 7, adjacent will be hypotenuse will be 25, and then adjacent will be 24 because that's a Pythagorean triple. You definitely want to know your triples when you're doing these problems. Now we want to use the other set of information. So the tangent of y is 15 over 8. Y is in the third quadrant. So draw yourself a third quadrant triangle. So on this one, I have a tendency to forget the negative signs the first time through and then add them back in. So opposite to adjacent is 15 over 8, but since we're in the third quadrant, they're both negatives. So negative 15, negative 8, and then the hypotenuse is 17. Again, Pythagorean triple. So let's take a look. We want to find the sine of 2x minus y. So first I'm just going to kind of, I'm just going to plug right into the formula. So the sine of like a minus b. So sine of 2x minus y is going to be, it's the sine of the first thing, so sine of 2x, cosine of the second thing, so cosine y, and then minus, because that's part of the formula, the cosine of the first thing, and then the sine of the second thing. So that's our formula. And now to do this, I really need to know sine of 2x and cosine of 2x. And those aren't exactly given. I can't get them directly from the triangle. So what I'm going to do is just calculate them. So I'm going to calculate this, sine of 2x, kind of down here off to the side. So what you don't want to do in these problems is you don't want to keep going with formulas. You don't want to go crazy with that. You want to get values as soon as you can and substitute those. So sine of 2x is definitely 2 sine x cosine x. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my triangle. So that's going to be 2 times. I need the sine of x. So go to the triangle. That's opposite over hypotenuse. So I'm going to replace sine of x with negative 7 over 25 times the cosine of x. I'm going to do the same thing. Go to the triangle. So 24 is adjacent, hypotenuse 25, so 24 over 25. And then I'm actually going to just use a calculator on these throughout this video. So we end up with the sine of 2x is negative 336 over 625. Okay, let's find the cosine of 2x. So cosine of 2x, I have to decide which formula to use. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to use 1 minus 2 sine squared in this case. Mostly because sine of x is just smaller. Also, it was the given information. You should always try to use that if you can. So that's going to be 1 minus 2. I know that the sine of x is negative 7 over 25. Square it. I use a calculator on this. So we get 527 over 625. All right, so we're actually almost done with this because now it's just substitution. So the sine of 2x minus y is going to be equal to, so sine of 2x we just calculated, negative 336 over 625. Cosine of y, we're going to go to the triangle for y. So adjacent is negative 8, hypotenuse 17, so negative 8 over 17. The minus is a part of it. And then cosine of 2x we calculated, so 527 over 625. And then sine of y, we're going to go back to the triangle for y, get negative 15 over 17, and fill that in. All right, and now we just, I use the calculator. It's just arithmetic, but it's arithmetic I don't want to do during the video. So I get 10,593 over 10,625. All right, so that's the sine of 2x minus y. And I also calculated sine of 2x and cosine of 2x in the process of this, which is going to be relevant because in the next problem, what I want to find is the cosine of 2y minus 2x. I can do this a couple of ways. One way is I can make it the cosine of 2 times the quantity y minus x and kind of go from there. But instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it as the cosine of 2y minus 2x. So I'm going to make 2y the first thing and 2x the second thing. So it's going to be cosine of the first thing, cosine of the second thing, and then plus, because it's cosine, and sine of the first thing, and then sine of the second thing. Okay, so now it's essentially the same type of problem. One thing to keep in mind, though, is in the last problem, we found cosine of 2x and sine of 2x, so we don't want to do that again. So I'm just going to need to find cosine of 2y and sine of 2y. All right, so cosine of 2y. Doesn't matter which of the formulas I use. I'm going to use cosine because it's the smaller ratio, but again, that doesn't matter at all. So it's going to be 2 cosine squared of y minus 1. So that's going to be 2 times, go to the triangle, cosine is negative 8 over 17. And then we want to square that and then subtract 1. Use a calculator on this, get negative 161 over 289. So now I know the cosine of 2y. I just need to find the sine of 2y, and I'll pretty much be ready to substitute and finish this thing. So the sine of 2y is 2 sine of y cosine of y. So that's going to be 2 times. Sine of y, I go to the triangle, negative 15 over 17. Fill that in. Cosine of y, we found last time, was negative 8 over 17, so let's fill that in. And calculator. All right, so we have these two values for cosine of 2y, sine of 2y. In the previous part, we found cosine of 2x and sine of 2x, so I'm just going to substitute those in. So the cosine of 2y minus 2x is the cosine of 2y, which we just calculated, negative 161 over 289. Cosine of 2x we found in the previous problem to be 527 over 625, plus, just part of the formula, sine of 2y we just calculated, and sine of 2x from the previous part is negative 336 over 625. Grab a calculator, and we get that the cosine of 2y minus 2x is negative, 165,487 over 180,625. All right, and that's 2 pretty good examples of about as hard as these get. I hope you found this helpful, and good luck.